This is BBC4. The next programme contains some strong language.
Take your seats, ladies and gentlemen, take your seats. Welcome. Hello. We have for you 3 great acts and more. Ladies and gentlemen, the clandestine, insurgent, rebel clown army presents.
I can't think of anything more pleasurable than, going around in a clown army, in a bus, and being paid to do it.
An army of anarchists is invading Scotland. The rebel clowns are on a mission to subvert the G8. The gathering of world leaders is a magnet for the British left.
Would you like to sign the petition to make poverty history?
Make poverty history?
The G8 thing, Bob Geldof.
Okay, I haven't got any money to give you though.
That's all right. We're critically supporting...
Mark's a full-time worker for the Communist Party of Great Britain. His whole life is dedicated to the revolution.
I'm a communist. I have to believe in the profundity and the ability of millions and millions of people, the majority in society, to think in deep ways about political questions. Now, let me explain before you start.
Okay, well, 5 minutes and then we're on the road.
A caravan of Greens is living out their beliefs by cycling all the way from London to Edinburgh.
Oh, hi, Darren, it's Matt.
They'll be joined by Matt, a Green Party activist.
I guess that's why people go on demos. Because when you do see, 500,000 people thinking the same thing as you and they're for the same reason, you think, yeah, God damn it, it's not just me. I'm not strange because I've got some problems with the government.
Riding to Scotland for the G8.
Children of the revolution. Can we go?
The Clown Army is planning action against the G8 summit with the help of a grant from Arts Council England.
Normally there's that kind of adrenaline build towards an action, and I've never done it with a tour before, so it's quite strange having to keep the energy kind of going for those 9 weeks, and then keeping that level of intensity for the next week is going to be hard. I call myself a pathological optimist. I think it's what's kept me being an activist for the last decade or so.
The other one to say? Make capitalism history.
Did you have a look at the roadworks guys?
I talked
Were
to them.
they real roadworks?
Oh no, I reckon they were, MI5 agents dressed as roadwork guys.
God, the lengths they will go to
They had special
stop the revolution. You see what I'm saying?
It's incredible. I saw you could tell they're tattoos. They were stick-on. They weren't real.
Yeah.
The clown's target is the Gleneagles Hotel, a luxury Scottish golf resort. In 10 days, the world's most powerful politicians will gather here. Climate change and debt relief for Africa will top the agenda. Protesters believe only mass pressure will make the G8 leaders actually change anything.
History is really good at making us forget that everything we have right now, people have fought for. The fact that women can vote was fought through direct action, not people chaining themselves to railings, but doing really radical forms of actions, criminal damage and really full-on campaigns of direct action. And unions were fought through direct action. Most of the things we completely take for granted, were won through struggle. They weren't won through asking politicians to give us concessions.
Increasingly, we don't have time to see our families. We don't have time to do leisure activities. Why is it that people are still working so hard? If we're so rich, why haven't we got a better quality of life? I really want to go to Gleneagles just to recharge and realise that I am indeed part of a huge movement that is creating change, that is going to create a lot more change.
The Communist Party of Great Britain was once a party of thousands. Today it's just a few hundred. Mark Fischer's the national organiser.
Sign the petition to make poverty history? We're from the Communist Party, all right? We're critically supporting some of the demonstrations that are taking place around the G8 in Edinburgh towards the end of this week, all right? what we're saying about that...
Mark's been a party activist since he was 13. Every Saturday he's out, selling papers on the street in Islington. It's a calling.
Just your signature, I'm looking for. Yeah. People learn. People's old attitudes are challenged, and you have an opportunity of making them think. If you simply approach people on the basis of what they currently have in their heads, then I think a project of human liberation that to me is synonymous with Marxism has no chance at all. Common sense in wider society is bourgeois. Like something produced to make property history?
John's a different kind of activist. For him, the clown army is an experiment in turning the world upside down.
Everyone has that ability to be the clown and to find that playful, spontaneous, vulnerable sense of self. And I personally think that's an absolutely radical position to find. So much radical politics doesn't really deal with that stuff on the interior level. And I think to also create a political form, which is very popular, everyone knows what a clown is.
You will see on your hats is the letter P.
The clowns invite the audience to participate in radical origami.
There is one thing that is most important when we are radically changing the world, and that is pleasure. You will see in front of you, you have transformed your heart into a hat, and your hat into a chip cone. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, now is the time for the most pleasurable part of the entire performance. The free chips.
The organic chips are cooked in oil that's recycled to fuel the caravan. Clown power is either solar or biodiesel, and they're cooking up some novel forms of civil disobedience.
Bring on the map. Now, as you know, this is Gleneagles Hotel, where the G8 will be sipping champagne, playing golf, and alleviating poverty. In the clown army, we've had an idea.
The criminal elements, the antisocial types, are in Gleneagles. And we really need to change them. We need to reach them with compassion and love, but of course, there is this very tricky perimeter around them. We're happy to have it there. It keeps them in their place, keeps them in one place, but we still need to be able to have a good talk with them. And what the idea is, of course, is that we will be using our massive destructive weapon to launch one clown at a time, clown by clown, in a never-ending barrage of relentless love and compassion directly into Gleneagles until they change. Countdown from 8 for the G8. Ready? 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
As they travel the country, the clowns invite people to join them in carrying out direct actions. Today, it's Glasgow's turn.
There is a telephone number on here. That is our solicitor's number. I'd like to point out that this action is completely legal. I've done it about 13 times. Nobody has ever been arrested. I think this is because the point of this action is about to engage people in a friendly, smiley way.
Those attending the free training session are about to be initiated into peaceful civil disobedience.
Even I get nervous doing it because it's just the thing of performing and going into space and doing something that you're not supposed to do. It's kind of like this, you get into the shop and your heart's beating, but there's a point where your adrenaline kicks in and it's kind of like you go through the wall, call it the wall, and you're kind of capable to do anything at that point.
I think it's quite ridiculous. You're frightening people in here.
Why are people frightened?
Well, how do we know you don't have something on you?
We're praying to products.
You're praying to products, are you stupid?
But it's the new religion, don't you think?
That's all right.
But it is the new religion. We live our lives based on our products.
You could have anything on you, blow one yours up. How do we...
Why would I want to hurt people?
Well, what are you doing in here?
Is that hurting people?
You're annoying me.
These things hurt people. The sweatshops. You ever heard of sweatshops?
Get a life.
Amen, sister. I feel almost like I need to fall on my knees and get down on my knees and worship you, House of Fraser. Brothers and sisters of Glasgow. Hallelujah to the House of Fraser. This is our church, the church of shopping, We do not care about the debt on our credit cards. Fraser, come into me and engulf me and make me better and make me stronger. Oh, I feel you. Brothers, sisters, I've seen the light. I've seen the light. It is praises. It is praises. Hallelujah. Thank you, brothers and sisters, for shopping and working so hard. Thank you. I can only fall at your feet. Brother, don't leave me. Come back. Come back, brother.
Thank you, thank you, police, for protecting us.
Thank you, stop guard, please. Do not close the doors. Stay open. Leave the doors open.
Not put your saliva on the window, please, okay?
Amen, brother.
The G8 bike ride has made it to Lancaster. It's a week since they left London and they're about to get a new recruit.
Everybody's going to be going up to Gleneagles for different reasons and protesting against the G8 and in different ways. Actually, to be honest, it's a holiday, you know, I need a holiday sometime and it's not what I usually do. Brilliant, fantastic. Oh wow, looks really smart with these.
Alright, cool. New helmet, looking lovely. Paid an extra 10 quid for the holes.
The caravan's been covering 50 to 60 miles daily. With time off, it'll take 12 days to ride from London to Edinburgh. About 70 cyclists have made it this far. Matt finally catches up with a bike ride at Lancaster University.
And off into Lancaster town with the G8 bike ride. I'd just like to welcome our 2 new recruits to the G8 bike ride. Already bankrupt. 65 units of pure raw pedal power cycle into Scotland against corporate power. They don't have a chance, and we're having more fun. Into this house we're born, into this world we're Scotland's this way, mate. Like a dog without a bone, an actor alone, riders on the storm.
What kind of pain are you anticipating?
Yeah, a lot. Groinal. There's going to be no humour from me in this documentary. I'm a serious activist. Serious helmet. What have I got? I've got chocolate, fair trade organic chocolate. I've got more chocolate.
That's actually been bought by Cadbury's now. Which
I know, don't tell them, but I know, what can I do? It's organic bread, sleeping bag.
Matt's more orthodox political activities have made him late in joining the bike ride.
Yeah, it's busman's holiday. I haven't had a holiday. You know, I've been working hard in the general election.
Edinburgh. Some are already expecting the worst. The G8 summit will be held in the seclusion of Gleneagles, 30 miles away. So this is where most of the protests are happening. All shades of the British left will be here. For Mark, political dissent is a family tradition.
I was born and brought up a communist, I suppose. My family have a long history of involvement with the Communist movement, the Communist Party of Great Britain. My mother was a very important influence. Joining the Communist Party in the early 50s would have entailed her being sidelined as an enormously stroppy, intelligent young woman into bring and buy sales and organising the bazaars and 3 T's, please Barbara, could you bring them through to the committee as it sits there? So if she wasn't a fighter before she joined the Communist Party, she was very much a fighter after she joined the Communist Party. In the immediate aftermath of the collapse of the Soviet Union, you certainly didn't get people telling you to go back to Russia anymore, apart from those who really hadn't kept up with things. But you were treated a little bit like the Flat Earth Society, that you're possibly well-meaning, but fundamentally loopy. And we were isolated. I think revolutionaries were isolated.
It's not only the protesters converging on Edinburgh. Saturation policing will mark everything about the G8, which climaxes in a week's time. The clowns have arrived too. They're about to hold a press conference. They don't trust the media, but they're fed up because Live 8 seems to be hijacking the anarchists' original protest.
Bob Geldof said, I don't want a bunch of clowns ruining the event, so we thought we need to go on to the media offensive, really, to show that we're not here to ruin the event, we're here to make the event work. As soon as you do something different from marching to A to B, especially if you don't believe in leadership or don't believe in government, then you're going to be labelled violent. And yet, it's not about, as soon as you just don't believe in these certain things, you're labelled violent, despite the fact that you may call yourself a non-violent group or you may have tactics that are clearly non-violent.
So please, if you eat the chips, our van moves forward more quickly to Gleneagles. So really, join us and help us move the van towards Gleneagles. They're quite good too, actually. Oh! I'm going to put it right in the lens. To our attention, through death infiltration, clever clandestinity, that several criminal, antisocial elements are trying to hijack and co-opt our movement. They are here amongst us. Beware! If you see Brown or any of his terrorist henchmen, please report them to the Clown Patrol nearest to you on the march. And keep your distance, they're quite dangerous.
We'd like that, actually. Question, do clowns want to be taken seriously?
Do you want to be taken seriously?
Will you take us seriously? I'm not the question, I'm not dressed.
No, we are a very serious organisation.
Yes.
Pretending to be stupid.
It's Friday, 6 days before the G8 leaders meet and the day before the Make Poverty History March. The G8 Bike Ride's frontrunners have just made it to Edinburgh.
They're telling us it's 604.67 miles. We went round Waterford a couple of times as well.
I suspect their politics will be informed by a rather different type of approach to these problems than mine, but good for them. I think it's excellent that they come here, and I hope, like me, they come with an open mind, prepared to listen and argue and debate. I think that's the key thing. I mean, there will be a myriad of different ideas on the streets of Edinburgh tomorrow.
And I hope you give a nice warm welcome to the veteran campaigning journalist for the north of Ireland, Eamon McCann.
And what we have got to decide is which side are we on? And we've got to understand that the people who will meet in Gleneagles, they are representatives of the rotten rich, determined to maintain and sustain this situation into the future. They do not want us to understand and to receive the most important truth of all, which is this: that the reason the poor are poor is that the rich are rich. It is the same rotten system which generates the vast.
At Edinburgh's Waverley Station, a trainload of anarchists is arriving, and the constabulary is there to take their pictures.
Wait for everybody! Wait.
some of the cyclists show up, together with their mobile sound system. They've also come to welcome the new arrivals.
We're not conventional believers. No everybody's going to leave us. But if you're a recommend you get because there's no restriction on the door. All you need to get in is a beer on your cheek and indefinite stay, and you don't have to pay. At Guantanamo Bay, it's the U.S. of A.
10,000 extra police from all over the country have come to bolster the Scottish forces. Protecting next week's G8 meeting has generated the biggest security operation Britain's ever seen.
Shuffle back again, bowing prayer to the east. Pray down on your belly like a beast. Peace, you're never gonna be released. Peace, till the day you're deceased.
Saturday, July the 2nd, the day of the Make Poverty History March. Matt's wondering if it's safe to leave his bike.
I don't feel at all happy about leaving my panniers attached to the bike here in Edinburgh. Even with all the dedicated people who have come here to march, I don't trust all of them to leave my panniers around. Maybe at the end of the day I'll feel better to leave my panniers with any of the 250,000 people here, and we'll be in solidarity together.
Are we ready?
Fresh companies of clowns are swelling the rebel army. They're almost ready to march to the meadows.
The clown army, well prepared to march by column. Go!
That was fantastic, people. Fantastic. I love you.
If you see any strange politicians who want to hijack your movement, notify your nearest clown, rebel clown patrol.
Over here.
There's Gordon Brown. Hillary Bennett over there. Tell us. We will protect you. Tell us. And then you have organised into collective autonomous society. Organise. 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 Left, right. Organise.
The clown's ironic approach is lost on many of the demonstrators. And there's another problem. The army's getting too big to take collective decisions. The march ends in disarray.
And what about going and defending KPMG?
We're protecting the march from KPMG.
Does anyone know enough about KPMG to make the story make sense to people?
It's a consultancy firm. That's all I can say. It's very large.
They're just not a particularly pleasant company. They're a management consultancy and an accountancy firm. They're going to be closed today, but the advantage of it is it's really near it's on the route to the march, and it's really obvious, and it's at that end.
Let's get nearer there.
The clowns are off to the closed offices of the accountancy firm KPMG. On the way, they find some anarchist friends are being held by police.
Do you know if you're being arrested or only detained?
So they go into a huddle to decide what to do. Should they, or should they not, speak to the police in high-pitched clown voices?
Maybe 2 or 3 of us could actually try and negotiate with the head inspector, ask why they're arrested.
No, clowns, as clowns. Everyone focus on ground, let's hold hands.
We have friends in there, we just want to get information about what's happening there.
Not far away, the Communist Party's doing a brisk trade in radical merchandise.
I need another 2A.
Kerry, however, is having trouble putting up the tent.
You couldn't give me an answer. Apartheid looks at it's like a crypto factor, isn't it? It's got to bind together, isn't it?
When it comes to something like this, I feel more part of my group than at any other time. I don't feel I merge into this. I feel very much part of the small group that I have come with, that I work with, that that formulate ideas together and then try to convince others of.
I think the most important thing is trade justice. I think that's obvious.
No, I don't really. You know, trade isn't just some sort of ahistorical phenomena in that sense. I mean, you have to locate it in the type of society that we've got. We have trade that takes place under a particular system, which is called capitalism. All right.
Well, that's probably the system we have to work with, but it has to be a fair system.
But capitalism is based on unequal exchange.
Well, my mate George is just not going to buy this idea of a complete overthrow.
Listen. I hate to be the one to break the news. You are not Tony Blair.
Oh no! I'm not really Tony.
Meanwhile, the clowns are having another meeting.
The decision is if we'd like to try and leave now or stay here. Do people want to express opinions on that? Sorry, I'll go around this way. Is that okay if I call hands?
We're saying this is very good, this is inspiring, this is fantastic, that tens of thousands of people in the so-called affluent West are here to protest against the plight of, the miserable plight, the hellhole that millions of other human beings are in. That's a fantastic thing. But the ideas that are in these people's heads, unfortunately, will not solve that problem. Would you like to buy a paper that goes into that in more detail?
Not especially, no.
But more generally, possibly. Not specifically, but more generally, yes? It's quite an interesting article, I wrote it. Apart from ourselves and a number of, one or two other small groups. Revolutionary Left does not organise democratically. It organised sects where members are not allowed to dissent publicly. Like my paper explains why fair trade under capitalism doesn't work.
I think I know anyway.
You know?
I support it, that's what I'm here for.
No, it doesn't work. Fair trade doesn't work.
Okay, to be honest,
and
fair
why?
trade doesn't work.
That's right.
Who are you from?
Communist Party.
Communist Party, okay.
When we fight for the alleviation of poverty, when we fight for on the question of aid or anything like that, it must be part of an overall program, right? That attempts to mobilize people for that fundamental idea. That until we unravel that knot of the type of society we have, capitalism itself, then all we're having is partial victories.
Many protesters are angry that the Blair government has so publicly endorsed Make Poverty History. They see the G8's policies as directly responsible for causing poverty in Africa.
In the last few minutes, the Chancellor Gordon Brown.
Over 100,000 people certainly here. And I think we can already send a message to people.
Good governance, creating a climate in which people will want to come and invest their money, develop economy, give people jobs, improve healthcare and education.
Hilary Benn might seem an unlikely protester. After all, he's the man in charge of Britain's aid policies in Africa. But an old friend of Matt's takes a more charitable view of the marching ministers.
I think that they must be aware of the problems that there are in Africa, and they, not all politicians are just in it for the power and don't really care about people. They might, Hilary Benn might have a heart. She might be doing it for publicity, because she wants to look good.
Sorry, Hilary Benn's a bloke. So.
Hilary
Benn's the fucking.
I'm not like, you're the politician. I'm the bloody Oxfam.
No, we need. I don't think that's a very good question. We need to concentrate because Ruth's trying to think of. Ruth's got all this information about women and stuff. You're not doing it right now. Where's all the details about climate change?
What does it mean to be a communist these days?
Well, like, it means, it means like, it's the only thing that really means anything. Like, I mean, sort of because, like the various sort of like, for me, like, I was sort of, they describe like, people describe communism as a form of, I don't know, ultra-leftism. Or like, I don't know, or sort of a form of like the extreme left. But for me, it's just like, it's the only sort of politics which historically and politically and sort of socially like has any sort of coherence. Like leaflet?
I haven't got any hands.
Okay, fair enough.
Unionise, organise! Stand and sweatshops! Unionise, organise! Stand and sweatshops!
The thing is, because we're so marginalised by the corporate media, we don't get our message across. So lots of people don't realise how much they actually agree with the Green Party. I mean, on an individual by individual basis, you know, we can make an argument that the majority of the country agrees with the Green Party.
I vote Green.
So you don't need one.
Yeah,
that's brilliant.
You need paper, and you know what paper is?
Well, that's so. That's so green of you. I'm so glad.
Yeah, I never take leaflets.
Oh,
or if I do, I go like that.
Maybe that's why everybody else isn't taking leaflets, because they vote green already. So she didn't need one. She didn't want to waste paper. I'll just tell myself that that's why all the other people don't want them. The problem is these people are socialist workers, so we're never going to change their views. I don't know who these people are. Oh my god, I actually recognise some of these people. They're kind of the usual suspects. I think that the problem with is and why the Greens are different. It's very old-fashioned socialist campaigning. Let's associate this with some of the worst aspects of fundamentalism.
More than 250,000 people are marching in the biggest protest Scotland's ever seen. But it's eclipsed by events elsewhere.
50% of that continent is under 16, and most of those children will go to bed hungry tonight, like every night.
Bob Geldof's Live 8 concert in London is stealing much of Scotland's thunder.
Don't let them tell us that this doesn't work.
I do fear that Live 8 has helped the politicians get an unwarranted good image, and Make Poverty History was certainly not designed to do that, and Live 8 has overtaken the Make Poverty History agenda. We don't think that just making Tony Blair look good by Bob Geldof laying his head on his shoulder is enough. It's not getting deep enough to the root causes of poverty and of exploitation and certainly of climate change.
The day after the march, John and a gaggle of clowns are leaving Edinburgh. They're planning their disobedience at Gleneagles, where the world's leaders will gather 4 days from now. Many of the other protesters will spend the day at an anti-G8 summit. The Communist Party roadshow is already in position.
When you look at events like the Make Poverty History campaign, you precisely see the yawning chasm between the aspiration to make capitalism history, to go beyond this exploitative society, and how we actually get there. When you're confronted with a mass movement, how do you address it? How do you enter into some sort of conflict with the existing ideas to try and take the movement forward, yes, right? But also to change its character, to give it a different content. Marxism actually works. It actually explains why capitalism engenders poverty. It explains why a new system is necessary to get rid of the horrors of world poverty that we see around us. And it explains how to get there.
So I just want to say that if we want to move to a world that is not a military world and not a nuclear world, then we have to understand how and why people act the way they do today. And we have to work to persuade them to understand a different concept of security, not just a military security, but environmental security. We need to get them thinking about things like climate change. We need to get them thinking about how to wean themselves off oil.
Monday morning. The clowns who stayed in Edinburgh don't have time to put on their makeup before the police start filming. At first, the officers are friendly enough.
We don't have that whole hierarchy thing, I'm afraid.
You're a non-hierarchical organisation.
Against our principles.
Some of you guys are really, really well drilled.
Yes.
And some of you guys are less well drilled.
We're better than you lot.
You're better drilled. Alright, well you have a good day, guys.
We will.
Nice to talk to you.
If you're concerned, we're safer already.
Stay mellow.
Today the police are especially watchful. A Section 60 order has been imposed all over Edinburgh. This allows the police to stop and search people for weapons if they believe violent incidents are likely.
Get aside, Robert.
And they're not telling the truth.
You're in charge, please. You're in charge.
We're in charge. I'm in charge.
Section 60 is Section 60 is emergency Scottish law to allow you. That's for weapons.
Okay, so they can only search us for weapons.
The clown's only weapon is a feather duster, but they're searched anyway. The police get a dose of clown humour, but the encounter stays peaceful. It gets more intimidating when they form a ring around the clowns.
I have nail scissors.
Anybody who tells you they're not scared in a situation like that is lying or is psychotic. That's why they do it like that. We did it. We did our clown thing.
It's now only 3 days to Gleneagles. Direct actions are happening all over Scotland. Matt's leaving Edinburgh for a protest against nuclear weapons.
A rock concert is one thing. A march is another thing. Going and taking direct action in peaceful, non-violent civil disobedience is another thing. I think it's really important then to go to Faz Lane to make sure that we are connecting all the dots, that what we've seen at Live 8, what we've seen in Make Project History is carried through to people realising and protesting against some of the underlying problems of our government's own nuclear weapon system. If we live in a world where the threat of continual state violence is ever present, we can't move towards the sustainable, peaceful solutions to eradicate poverty and to make poverty history without linking it into the fact that the world is actually ruled by fear and by power.
Faz Lane on Scotland's west coast. This is the home of Britain's nuclear-armed submarines. The protesters are blockading the base to prevent movement in and out.
The oil fuel gates are also closed at the moment, but there's very few people down there. So, in a few moments, the samba band's going to lead people off.
I guess as doing this kind of thing becomes more and more mainstream, there's going to be more and more people doing it. I've certainly never done this before, but it's the first time for everything.
Do you actually think what we're going to do here today, Caroline, is going to make any difference?
I think it will, just because there are so many people here who feel so strongly about it, and that there's a lot of determination to keep this base closed down for the whole day. And people are willing to risk arrest if necessary. You know, they're not just talking about nuclear weapons, they're really kind of putting their bodies where their mouth is, if you like. And I think that's incredibly powerful, and I think that, you know, if the G8 do end up talking about nuclear weapons in a few days' time, we can take some credit for that, because I think it is sending a very clear message.
Once again, the police cameramen are out gathering evidence, just in case.
No one is seriously committing an offence at the moment. Why are they basically trying to intimidate us by getting as much information on us as they possibly can? It's unnecessary.
In Edinburgh too, the police are out in force. It's the so-called Carnival for Full Enjoyment, and the protesters have been gathering around Princes Street. Unlike the Make Poverty History March 2 days ago, no arrangements have been made with the authorities. The police are far less tolerant today, and it's obvious they're expecting trouble. They repeatedly charge the protesters and pen them in.
And we propose that we go and join them. It will not be easy. We may have to pretend we're on the guest list. We will be going. We invite you to come with us and crash this party.
Some clowns are off to join the protest, or party as they call it.
March on! Left! 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 Right! Left!
They're heading for the now deserted financial district in search of the protest. They don't get far before meeting the police. Time for the party gag.
We heard there's a party in Dave. We want to come. We're on the guest list. We're on the guest list.
The police don't get the joke and refuse to let them through. The clowns try another tactic.
We got the police turned in. We have them surrounded. They're not going anywhere. We have them in our power now.
But the police turn more aggressive, and the pink fluffy army is forced to disperse. Gleneagles, just before the G8. More a fortress than a golf resort. Tomorrow the most powerful men on the planet will be here. This level of protection may be good for police overtime, but it's bad news for people wanting to protest.
They're already picking up people along the motorway, they're picking up people in the nearby village, in the general area. And generally I suspect that lefties in that type of part of Scotland might stand out like a sore thumb. Very early tomorrow morning we will attempt to go via the conventional route to the protest. If we are blocked, try to find a way round it and try to sneak through.
And Mark's journey will be blocked, but not by the police. It's just after dawn. The clowns have regrouped at a castle near Gleneagles. This will be their most ambitious event yet. It's intended as a model of action without leaders.
We don't know what everyone's doing, so the cops certainly don't know what everyone's doing. And, you know, that's also the world we want, where everyone has their own autonomy, and yet they're working together in a joined, united way, as opposed to a march going boom one way, asking permission from the cops, and the cops knowing exactly where it's going to go and who's organising it, and so on.
The clowns plan to blockade the roads nearby. They want to disrupt the G8 summit by stopping delegates getting to Gleneagles.
Well, we're going to try and take the 823, which is a road that comes up from Edinburgh up north, goes onto the A9 just under Gleneagles Hotel, so we're going to try and take that because we think that might be one of the roads that the delegates will be taking, because the A9 is now closed and there's quite a lot of disruption. The police are telling drivers not to actually get in their cars or do anything for the next hour because of the disruption, so it looks like we're locking down bits of Scotland, which is great.
Left, left, right, left, 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 right, left, left.
The clowns are almost at the road to Gleneagles, but the police have got there before them.
Start looking so you can eat your dinner of it!
They are now stopping and the back of my
In a circle! Jason! Corral them in a circle! Behind you! Look behind you!
We can see far into the distance that corporate capitalism and the empire seem to be toppling it.
Come down to the road, please! Everyone else, there's a gap!
There's a gap, you! There's a gap!
Well, we went on the road for very long. We got onto it, which was nice. We're tying up 110 cops, which is also nice.
Clear the fairway! Clear the fairway! Clear the fairway! Yes! Let's all play golf! Yes! Let's all play golf! You are now quite clearly sitting down in the road. You are obstructing the highway. I will give you a warning and ask you, please stand up and walk, please. On your feet.
Let's go. Form into a column of twos.
Goes.
Left, right, left, 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 right, left, 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 right, left, 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 right, left,
Direct action works because everyone on that night who was involved in the blockade had a ball, had one of the most extraordinary adventures of their life. And as far as I'm concerned, if politics isn't that kind of adventure, then you're not going to get people involved.
I'm also disappointed we didn't block the Japanese coach. I'm up for doing some direct action, disobedience. I feel that we were a bit obedient, but it was fucking brilliant fun, and I had a great time. And I loved running down the A9 and playing with cones and stuff.
4 hours later, thousands of people are gathering in Octorada, a village near Gleneagles. Mark's only just arrived because he's been held up by the anarchist blockade. He meets Matt for the first time. They're both here to protest against the G8, but they don't have much else in common.
I mean, what was interesting, we were on our way here and we were just stopped by anarchists on a bridge. We were in a car, all right? They simply stopped a car of protesters on their way to the demonstration, all right? Now, you're against what you understand to be communism. I don't know how much you know about communism, but a lot of people are against what they perceive of as communism. That's up to them. I'm against anarchism. I'd never turn an anarchist away from a demonstration that he or she wanted to go to. What do you think?
I mean, I'm not in a position to condemn people for trying to express themselves. I mean, I think you've just got to get around what other people are doing.
They're a minority in the movement. They don't have the legitimacy to stop what the majority want to do they? I mean, people are here protesting about democracy and about having a say in how the world is run, all right? And they're saying, how can an extreme minority of people decide what millions and millions of people do? In our own movement, we have to be absolutely squeaky clean in terms of democracy, accountability, transparency, etc. So when we're confronted by a minority that says, I'm sorry, we have decided to do this, we're turning you away from the protest, that's intolerable. It's absolutely intolerable.
I mean, you've got to admit your objectives as well, which is to forward the cause of communism. And that's probably why people like anarchists probably don't want to participate in a democracy with you. They don't share the objectives.
I'm sure they've got a political difference with me, yeah. That's not the point, is it?
And I mean,
Green Party has a view that human beings are a problem on the planet.
Well, no, that's bollocks.
Well,
that's just bollocks.
What
communists want to do is just take the existing society and put it in the ownership of the workers. That won't work because the existing society is based on nuclear arms, is based on nuclear power, is based on fossil fuels. And just merely putting it in the hands of the workers will just retain the problem under a different ownership. It'll still be statist and people will still be disenfranchised. We'll still have ridiculous patterns of trade and work.
The existing society isn't based on fossil fuels, it's based on a particular social relationship. All right?
Well, that's a very theoretical answer.
No, it's a very concrete answer. All right? You know, in terms of social relationships, this demonstration is a manifestation of people's half recognition of that exploitative social relationship where you have a minority that is in power.
You mean
capitalism? Yeah, capitalism. That's the word I was looking for, capitalism. Excuse me, I've got to dish out these papers. It's part of my revolutionary responsibility and my duties to the collective. All right? Excuse me, I'll be back. Got the Weekly Worker, Communist Party paper?
I've got a Morning Star.
Eh?
I've got my Morning Star.
The Morning Star, the yawning star.
Mark's targeting a rival from the Communist Party of Britain, as opposed to Great Britain.
Personally, I don't see that much of a difference between us.
Okay.
I think there's always a bridge available there.
Stop trying to compromise, you two-headed revisionist lizard. Too complex to go into. I got to go and sell papers.
No problem.
All right.
When he bumps into Matt again, he says the one thing guaranteed to enrage a Green.
Well, that's very scary. Because I could agree with you a lot more if you didn't think that climate change wasn't a problem. Because I mean,
what I've actually said.
If we agree with it, and if people more radical than us agree with it, if NGOs slightly more conservative agree with it, and if Tony Blair then agrees with it, I'm not sure where that puts you on the spectrum, other than kind of as
independently minded,
on the same right wing as George Bush.
Independently minded. There are people on the left, of course, who actually deny it. I'm not actually denying it. If you actually listen to what I said, if you actually listen to what I said,
I'm not sure there's room for more independent mindedness, other than that's what George Bush says.
That's quite a dangerous thing, isn't it?
No, that's what George Bush says. I mean, no, hold on. A minute ago you were talking about democracy, and you were saying that everybody here should basically do this demonstration in the way that you want them to do it.
No, not at all.
That's exactly what you're saying.
No, I was actually saying they have a right to come here.
Communists.
They have a right to be.
But now you're saying that we shouldn't be individually minded.
No,
it's dangerous.
I'm saying they had a right to come here.
I mean, for God's sake, this is George Bush's argument. Jesus Christ. Where are the constants here about where is the this is really frustrating because Mark is going on about saying, we must have democracy within the movement, so people will agree with me and do what I say. So I and my lot can outvote them. And at the same time he's saying, but it's really important that I disagree with everybody about the fundamentals of why we're here. I mean, Jesus Christ, we, the Green Party, and everybody else here, from the clowns to, most of the socialists and the anarchists and, just the NGOs are all in agreement that climate change is a problem, except Mark and the Communist Party, who seems to be sharing the same view with George Bush, that it might or might not be caused by human activity, and it's probably not a problem. It seems completely outrageous. I'm outraged. Oh God, it's the communists.
Hello? Let's all say hello to those miserable socialists!
Yes!
Let's all say hello to those miserable socialists!
There are a lot of other clowns in the hotel, you should be there.
Come the Weekly Worker, Communist Party paper. 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 You'll take yourself if you go home without one. Come on.
Are you worried that you're being sidelined?
No. No, I'm in the mainstream. These people are sidelined.
So you're still optimistic?
I'm always optimistic.
Somebody's just handed me this leaflet. A world without communist tyranny will be a safer place. I'll show this to Mark.
No GAs! No police state! No GAs! No police state!
The march is halted by the police barrier. Several hundred protesters spill over into a neighbouring barley field. They head for the security fence surrounding Gleneagles itself. Some of them pull a section down. Military helicopters fly in more riot police. Hundreds assemble with horses and dogs. They begin charging the crowd to force it to disperse. The protesters resist with a sit-down in the field.
It's not right to bring dogs in here! It's animal cruelty to bring dogs in here! Shame on you guys! Shame on you!
The standoff lasts about an hour. Then the police mount a massive charge to push people back down the hill.
Police violence, truncheoning and kicking people quite unnecessarily and gratuitously and blatantly. So yeah, you could feed that into the press release.
Constantly you had people telling you, and it's all about pressurising 8 men in a room to change history. But if you rely on 8 people in a room to change the world, then by definition you are in trouble.
We want to actually empower people in their local communities to take their own power and break power into lots of little bits and share it. And I think that is the challenge, and that's the difference and the biggest story we can tell. You can change the world without taking power.
Neither Matt, Mark nor John expected much from Gleneagles. Many others were disappointed when the G8 announced that $40 billion of debt would be cancelled, but only for the 18 poorest countries. Aid would be doubled to $50 billion. 11 days later, Gordon Brown admitted that the extra aid money includes that for debt relief. The summit made no progress on fairer trade and set no targets to control global warming.
Film drama next tonight, with quite a bit of documentary thrown in. The complexities of making a film about Richard III, explored by Al Pacino and some Hollywood pals. Looking for Richard is next.